Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Lizzie A. Borden, a dramatic reading of the full trial transcript. Day 4. Chief Justice Mason and Justices Blodgett and Dewey presided. The state was represented by the Honorable Hosea M. Knowlton, District Attorney of the Southern District, and William H. Moody, District Attorney of the Eastern District. The defendant, Miss Borden, was represented by the Honorable George D. Robinson, the Honorable Andrew J. Jennings, and Melvin O. Adams, Esquire. Part 5. The prosecution calls its next witness, Mr. John Fleet. Mr. Fleet is sworn in and takes the witness stand. Direct examination of the witness by Mr. Moody of the prosecution.
Your full name, sir?
John Fleet.
And are you at present Assistant City Marshal of Fall River?
I am, sir.
Were you last year?
I was, sir.
How long have you been in any capacity connected with the police force of Fall River?
Between 16 and 17 years.
And how long as an officer?
About 12 years.
How long have you been Assistant City Marshal?
Between 6 and 7 years.
Where were you on August 4th, 1892, when you first obtained any news of trouble at the Borden House?
At my residence, number 13 Park Street.
What time was it when you got the information?
I should say about 25 minutes to 12.
Who brought it?
A driver for Mr. Stone, stable keeper, Fall River.
After hearing what there was said to you, what did you do?
Put on my coat and hat, or cap, and went to 92 2nd Street.
And how did you get there, walking or driving?
In a buggy.
Whose buggy? Who took you?
Police departments.
Can you tell me what time you arrived at the Borden House?
I should say about 15 minutes to 12.
Whom did you first see as you approached the house?
Mr. Manning, reporter for the Fall River Globe.
And whom did you next see on the journey in toward the house?
I saw Mr. Medley. He came up to me as I was going into the house.
Was he inside or outside of the house?
He was outside of the house.
Outside of the house, on the street or in the yard?
In the yard, on the walk, between the fence, the street fence, and the side door.
You had some words with him, did you?
I did.
I do not ask what they were. Where did you then go?
I then went into the house.
Whom did you find in, downstairs?
I saw Mr. Morse, Bridget Sullivan in the kitchen, and I think Mrs. Churchill.
Did you see anybody else on the lower floor of the house?
I did. I went through the kitchen to the sitting room and saw Dr. Dolan standing or leaning over the body of Mr. Borden, Andrew J. Borden.
Where did you then go, Mr. Fleet?
I then went upstairs to the front bedroom, or spare bedroom so-called. Saw Mrs. Borden laid dead between the bed and the dressing case.
Thence, where did you go?
I came out the head of the stairs, turned to the right to open the door, but found that it was locked. I then asked if there was anybody in the house that knew anything about Dr. Bowen.
Where does that door lead to?
To a closet over the stairs.
Finding it locked, then, you had some talk with someone. And where did you go? What did you do?
I then went into the room where Miss Lizzie Borden was, sitting down on a lounge or sofa with Reverend Mr. Buck, Miss Russell being in the room.
Was that a bedroom or downstairs?
That was in Lizzie's bedroom, upstairs at the head of the stairs.
Did you have any talk with her at that time?
I did.
Won't you state what it was? Take time and state it in detail.
I went in there and told her who I was, made known who I was. I was then in citizen's clothes, as I am now, and I asked her if she knew anything about the murders. She said that she did not. All she knew was that Mr. Borden, her father, as she put it, came home about 10:30 or 11:15, went into the sitting room, sat down in the large chair, took out some papers and looked at them. She was ironing in the dining room, some handkerchiefs, as she stated. She saw that her father was feeble, and she went to him and advised and assisted him to lay down upon the sofa. She then went into the dining room to her ironing, but left after her father was laid down, and went out into the yard and up in the barn. I asked her how long she had remained in the barn. She said she remained up in the barn about half an hour. I then asked her what she meant by up in the barn. She said, up in the barn, upstairs, sir. She said after she had been up there about half an hour, she came down again, went into the house, and found her father. She went to the back stairs and called Maggie, and I asked her who Maggie was. She said Maggie was a servant girl, and she said that she told Maggie to go for Dr. Bowen. She said that she went, but Dr. Bowen was not in the house. He lives opposite to Mr. Borden's. She then told her to go for Miss Russell, and Miss Russell came, as she stated, and so did Dr. Bowen soon after. I asked her who was in the house this morning or last night. She said that no one but her father, Mrs. Borden and Bridget, and Mr. Morse and herself. I asked her, who was this Mr. Morris? She said, he is my uncle, and he came here yesterday and slept in the room where Mrs. Borden was found dead. Do you think that Mr. Morris had anything to do with the killing of your parents? She said no, she didn't think that he had, because Mr. Morris left the house this morning before 9 o'clock and did not return until after the murders. I asked her if she thought that Bridget could have done this, and she said she didn't think she could, or did. That Bridget... I would say here that I did not use the word Bridget at that time because she had given me the name as Maggie. I should say Maggie. I asked her if she thought Maggie had anything to do with the killing of these. She said no, that Maggie had gone upstairs previous to her father's lying down on the lounge. And when she came from the barn, she called Maggie downstairs.
Anything else?
I then asked her if she had any idea who could have killed her father and mother. Then she said, she is not my mother, sir. She is my stepmother. My mother died when I was a child. I then asked her if there had been anyone around this morning whom she would suspect of having done the killing of these people, and she said that she had not seen anyone, but about 9 o'clock that morning, a man came to the door and was talking with her father. I asked her what they were talking about, and she said she thought they were talking about a store, and he spoke like an Englishman. I think about all the conversation I had with her at that time. Oh, no, Miss Russell was in the room, and she says to Lizzie, tell 'em all what you were telling me. And she looked at Miss Russell, and then she says, about 2 weeks ago, a man came to the house, to the front door, and had some talk with Father, and talked as though he was angry. And asked her what he was talking about. She said, he was talking about a store, and Father said to him, I cannot let you have the store for that purpose. The man seemed to be angry. I then came downstairs.
Is that all you recall at that first interview with her?
I think it is.
I'm not quite sure, but was anything said about a note at that time?
Oh, yes.
If you will state it, Mr. Fleet, if it comes to your mind.
She asked, no, it was not at that time. I don't think it was.
Very well. From her room, did you go anywhere?
I went downstairs, just glanced around the room as I was in it. I then went downstairs, went through the dining room and sitting room, then went upstairs looking around the building, in the building.
Upstairs in what part?
I went upstairs into Bridget's room.
By the way, was there any other officer with you during this whole or in part of this first interview with her?
No, sir.
You had started to say something about the talk with Dr. Bowen about the locking of that closet door. Did you do anything more about that when you were up there that first time?
I did not speak to him or anyone else about the door. I merely tried the door and asked if there was anyone in the house, any of the family.
Now you have told us that you went downstairs and up again into Lizzie's room. Go on and describe what you did from that time on.
I went up, that is, went down the stairs into the sitting room and also into the dining room, back to the kitchen, again upstairs, trying the room. Mr. Borden's room, but found that locked. I then went upstairs.
That was their sleeping room?
Their sleeping room.
And the door leading back into the kitchen entry, you mean?
Yes, sir. Went upstairs and found Bridget's room locked and also a room next to it with a bed in it. I found the other rooms in the attic locked.
Then where did you go, Mr. Fleet?
I then went downstairs in the cellar and looked around there.
A little bit louder, Mr. Fleet. We have some difficulty in hearing you.
I then went downstairs in the cellar and found Officers Mullally and Devine there.
Did you make any search in the cellar that time, or find anything?
When I got down there, Officer Mullally had 2 axes and 2 hatchets on the cellar floor.
Where Mr. Mullally had got them from, of course you do not know except from what he told you.
Only as he told me afterwards.
Then what did you do, Mr. Fleet?
Looked around in the cellar to see if we could find any other instrument that might have been used for the purpose of killing, but failed to find anything.
Did you discover anything else there while you were down, in the shape of an instrument, while you were down at that time?
Not at that time.
What was done with the 2 hatchets and the 2 axes that Mullally had?
The 2 hatchets and axes was left there that day. The largest hatchet with the rust stain on it and the red spot upon the handle that apparently had been washed or wiped was placed behind some boxes in the cellar adjoining the wash cellar.
In the cellar adjoining the wash cellar?
Yes, sir.
Did you say that you put that hatchet there or found it there?
I put it there.
You put it in there, separating it from the other hatchets?
Yes, sir.
Are those the 2 axes to which you refer?
These seem to be.
Are those the 2 hatchets to which you refer?
They seem to be the 2 hatchets.
Which of the 2 was the one that you put away, separated from the rest?
This one.
The claw hammer hatchet.
Yes, sir.
You spoke of a red stain on its handle. Is it there now?
I don't see it as I did at that time. I don't see it.
After you had separated the hatchet from the others, what did you do?
I went up the stairs out in the yard, instructed some of the men who had been sent by the marshal to me to cover the different highways and depots.
At that time, did you see Mr. Medley again?
I did.
What did you instruct him to cover?
I told him to go down to...
Wait a moment.
It's only for the purposes of fixing time.
Well, fix the time then.
I will waive that question and make a preliminary question. Is there a train that goes to Providence at 12:30?
12:29.
When you talked with Mr. Medley, was it in time for him to go down before that train left?
He would have to hurry to catch the train.
And you gave him some instructions about the train?
I did. I told him to try to catch the train if he could make it, with further instructions to...
I don't care for this, Mr. Fleet. Whether he did or not, you did not, of course, know.
All I know is that he went away.
Where did you then go, Mr. Fleet?
I then had a talk with some of the officers in the yard and took them into the dining room of the Borden House.
You took them into the dining room?
Consulted with officers Minahan and Wilson and Inspector Dexter of the State Board.
And right here, is Officer Minahan now dead?
He is, sir.
What did you do after you had given these instructions?
After I had given the instructions, I went in the dining room and consulted with these two officers and this inspector. And after that, I went upstairs to search Lizzie's room.
Oh, which way did you go up?
I went up the front stairs.
Now, there's a good many people here, and you'll have to speak a little louder.
I went up the front stairs.
Did anyone go with you, Mr. Fleet?
Mr. Minahan and Mr. Wilson.
Will you describe all that you did and said after you got up into the hallway upstairs, the front hallway upstairs?
I went to Lizzie's door, rapped on the door. Dr. Bowen came to it, holding the door, opening the door, I should say, about 6 or 8 inches, and asked what I wanted. I told him that we had come as officers to search this room and to search the building. He then turned around to Miss Borden and told me to wait a moment. He then opened the door again and said...
He had shut it in the meantime.
He had. He closed the door. He then opened the door again and said that Lizzie wanted to know if it was absolutely necessary for us to search that room. I told him as officers, murders having been committed, it was our duty so to do, and we wanted to get in there. He closed the door again and said something to Miss Borden and finally opened the door and admitted us.
What did you do or say after you got into that room?
We said that we had come to search the room, search the premises. We proceeded to search, looking through some drawers, and the closet, and bedroom. While the search was still going on, I said to Lizzie, "You said this morning that you was up in the barn for half an hour. Do you say that now?" She says, "I don't say a half an hour, I say 20 minutes to half an hour." "Well, we will call it 20 minutes then." She says, "I say from 20 minutes to half an hour, sir." I then asked her when was the last time that she saw her stepmother, when and where. She said that the last time she saw her stepmother was about 9 o'clock, and she was then in the room where she was found dead and was making the bed. That is to say, she was making the bed in the room where she was found dead at 9 o'clock.
Well, proceed with the talk and the acts on your part.
She then said that someone brought a letter or note to Mrs. Borden, and she thought she had gone out and had not known of her return. We searched the rooms, and as we came to the head of her bed, I found a door there and went to open it, and she said that that door was locked and bolted from the other side, that we could not go through there, and I found it was locked on her side.
Will you point out that plan? There is the bedroom.
The door is here. That is, to the eastward, would be here.
To the east of the bed?
To the east of the bed.
And how was that door hooked at that time?
With a common hook and staple.
That is the door leading from Miss Lizzie Borden's room to Mr. and Mrs. Borden's bedroom. How was the bed situated with reference to that door?
Well, the bed was running about, I should call it northeast. The head of the bed was northeast.
Are the sides of the bed parallel to any side of the room? Or was that bed cornerwise?
It was cornerwise.
Will you look at this plan and see how the bed was with reference to the bed indicated on the plan?
I should say that was about the way the bed was, and it might not have been as close to this wall as it was there.
Did anything else occur in and about that room before you went elsewhere?
She said she hoped we should get through with this quick, that she was getting tired, or words to that effect. It was making her tired. And we told her we should get through as soon as we possibly could. It was an unpleasant duty, that is, considering her father and stepmother were dead. That is all. We searched that room, and then we went to the room where Mrs. Borden was found dead.
Let me ask you in connection if anything was said about the door of her room leading out.
Oh, yes.
State that.
She said there was no use in searching that room, that nobody could get into her room or throw anything in, that she always locked her door, even if she went downstairs when she left the room or went downstairs.
You said that you went into the guest chamber. Describe what you saw there.
I saw Mrs. Borden laid down between the bed and the dressing case, face downward, with her head all broke in or out, and she was dead.
Did you see anything with reference to the door leading from the guest chamber to Miss Lizzie Borden's chamber?
I saw a door which would lead into Lizzie Borden's room, and on Lizzie Borden's side was a bookcase and, I think, desk combined.
Yes. How was that situated with reference to the door?
Directly in front of the door, or in back of the door leading from where Mrs. Borden was found dead.
Did you notice anything with reference to fastening of that door? Any lock or fastening of any kind?
The door was locked.
How and on which side?
I would not be sure, but I think on Lizzie Borden's side.
Did you observe anything else in the guest chamber? I don't care for any observation of the body, but did you observe anything else?
I noticed blood spots. That is, she laid in a pool of blood, and there was blood upon the pillowcases and also upon the dressing case.
After you had completed observation of that room, where did you go, Mr. Fleet?
I got the keys, or asked Lizzie what was in this room, and she said that was a clothes press.
Pointing to what room when you said that?
Pointing to the room directly in front of Lizzie's room. That is, the door directly in front of Lizzie's as you come out, or directly over the stairs.
Is that the door you referred to before as having found locked?
Yes, sir.
Now go on and say what was said and done in reference to that.
Lizzie got the keys and opened the door, unlocked the door.
Do you know where she got the key from to unlock the door?
She got them from her room.
How much of an inspection or search did you make in that room at that time?
We just looked over the clothing, looked around the floor, and up on the shelf. We did not search very closely.
Where did you go, Mr. Fleet?
Then I asked how we could get into Mr. Borden's room, and she said, "You must get the keys. Maggie will give you the keys."
Did you get the keys?
I went downstairs, saw Maggie. Maggie showed us the room, unlocked the door, and we entered.
You went up the back way?
Went down the front stairs, through the sitting room and kitchen, and up the back stairs to get to it.
When you got into that room, did you make any inspection of the door which you had seen hooked in Miss Lizzie Borden's room on her side?
I did.
What did you discover, if anything, in reference to the fastening on Mr. and Mrs. Borden's side?
I found that it was bolted and locked.
Did you unfasten those locks at that time?
No, sir.
At any time, did you open the passageway yourself, or was it someone else?
I did not open it, not until the following Saturday.
Now, Mr. Fleet, after you had done that, what did you do?
Then went up in the attic, searched Bridget's room more closely and the closet, together with the room adjoining and the other rooms, and the west end of the attics.
What did you do then?
Came downstairs. Went down in the cellar again, saw Dr. Dolan, the officer still in the cellar, saw Officer Mullally, and I asked where he got the axes and the hatchet.
He will have to tell us about that. What did you do after you said something to Officer Mullally?
In consequence of my asking him, I found in a box in the middle cellar, as I call it, on a shelf or a jog of a chimney, an old-fashioned chimney, the head of a hatchet.
What sort of box was it in which the head of the hatchet was?
Well, it was a box, I should say, about a foot or 14 inches long, perhaps 8 or 10 inches wide. Might be a little larger, and I should say about 4 inches deep.
Was there anything else in the box except the head of the hatchet?
Yes, there were other tools. I can't think just what they were now, but there were other small tools in there, pieces of iron.
Will you tell me, taking this plan, what you mean by the middle cellar? Look at it long enough to tell about it.
This is the middle cellar. This is the chimney here, and upon the chimney, or a shelf, there was placed this box, and in this box was the head of this hatchet.
The witness indicates the cellar on the exhibit marked Exhibit 9.
How high was the shelf, Mr. Fleet?
Perhaps 6 feet off the ground.
Mr. Knowlton would like to have you mark with the pencil where that was found.
This is the chimney here, and I should say it is about here. Somewhere about there, I should say.
At the time you found the hatchet, was the wood and iron or steel separate?
Let me see if that is the one.
Yes, I will withdraw that question and ask you if that is the hatchet you found.
This looks like the hatchet that I found there. Pretty sure that is the one. This piece of wood was in the head of the hatchet, broken off close.
Broken off close to the hatchet?
Very close to the hatchet.
Mr. Fleet, will you describe everything in respect to the appearance of that hatchet if you can?
Don't want anything but just what the hatchet was at that time. Don't want any inferences.
I think he will be careful. Any appearances that you noticed about the hatchet, you may describe.
It was covered with a white ash, I should say, upon the blade of the hatchet. Not upon one side, but upon both.
Could you tell anything about whether there was ashes upon the head of the hatchet?
I don't think you ought to make any suggestions. I object to that style of question.
Well, describe further.
I should say that upon this hatchet was dust or ashes as though the head...
Wait a moment, I object to that.
Describe on what parts of the hatchet.
On both the faces and all over the hatchet was covered with dust or ashes.
Was that fine dust?
Wait a moment. The witness did not say fine dust. We object to that.
Describe the dust there.
The dust, in my opinion, was ashes.
According to your observation, what did it look like?
I object to it.
Describe it. Whether he recognized it as ashes or any particular substance, he may say.
I recognized it as ashes.
Can you tell me how fine or coarse the ashes were?
They were fine.
Did you notice anything with reference to the other tools in the box at that time?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice anything with reference to their condition in respect of ashes?
I did.
Will you tell us what it was?
There was dust upon them.
The same as upon this?
No, sir.
What difference was there, if any?
The other was a kind of dust, and there might be the dust of ashes. It was a light dust.
How in appearance did it differ from the covering of this hatchet?
Wait a moment. I object.
He may describe the differences, if there was any.
That is, the dust on the other tools was lighter and finer than the dust upon that hatchet.
At that time, Mr. Fleet, did you notice anything with reference to the point of breaking the hatchet?
The only thing I recognized at the time was that this apparently was a new break.
I object to that answer that this was a new break.
At that time, did you observe anything with reference to ashes upon the point of the break of the handle, upon the wood where it was broken?
There seemed to be ashes there like the other.
What did you do with that hatchet, Mr. Fleet?
I put it back in the box.
That was after you had separated the hatchet, the claw hammer hatchet?
Yes, sir.
After you had seen the hatchet, Mr. Fleet, what did you do?
I put it back in the box.
Where did you go then?
I went round to the cellar and then went outside. That is, went in the wash cellar and afterwards went outside.
At any time while you were there, did you pay any attention to the door leading from the cellar out into the backyard?
I did the first time I went down the cellar.
And that was the first time?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you in what condition you found the door at the time.
I found that the cellar door was open, the inner cellar door. I found the outer door was fastened.
And what do you mean by the outer door?
The one that leads out into the backyard.
Point it out in the photograph.
This one, here.
How was it fastened?
By a bolt.
The bolt upon which side?
Upon the inside.
How long did you stay about the premises, Mr. Fleet, upon the Thursday?
Until after 6 o'clock.
Not leaving at all?
I left in the meantime.
Coming back and stayed until after 6?
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether you at any time had any occasion to observe the blood on these two bodies, to take any special notice of it, did you?
I did. Yes, sir.
Will you state what you saw with reference to blood upon the two bodies, beginning first with Mr. Borden?
I found that the blood was on his face and ran down on his shirt, his clothing, and also went through the head of the lounge and on the floor, that there was quite a little pool of blood there and was much thinner than the blood which I found upstairs.
At what time did you make those observations?
As soon as I went in there, I noticed, and afterwards I noticed them more closely the second time I went in there.
Did you have any occasion to notice or test the relative heat of the two bodies?
No, sir.
Will you describe the blood on or about Mrs. Borden's head?
She was covered with blood, and there was considerable blood under her head, and the blood was congealed and black, that is, of a dark color.
What color was the blood about Mr. Borden's head?
More of a reddish color and much thinner.
Now, Mr. Fleet, did you take part in any search of the premises on some day later than Thursday?
I did. I took part in a search on the following Saturday the 6th.
What time in the day was that?
It was 1 o'clock or a little later, just after the funeral procession had left the house.
Who was there, besides yourself?
Marshal Hilliard, Detective Seaver, that is, State Police Officer Seaver, Mr. Jennings, Mr. Desmond, and myself.
How long a time did your search occupy?
Pretty well up in the afternoon. I couldn't just say how long, but perhaps 5 o'clock.
Upon the Saturday, did you go into the clothes closet in the front hall upstairs?
We did.
Did you examine all the dresses that you found there?
We looked at them, yes, sir.
Did you see either in that closet or in any other closet in the house, or anywhere in the house, a dress with marks of paint upon it?
No, sir.
How critically, how carefully were you examining the dresses at that time on the Saturday?
Very closely.
Did you find any blood upon any dress? I have asked you about paint. Did you find anything that looked like blood or any discoloration of any kind?
No, sir.
Did you make or assist in another search upon Monday following?
I did not.
Did you take the hatchet from the box again, or did someone else take it?
Someone else.
Did you receive possession of it again from anyone else?
No, sir.
So that the dress today, if it's in custody, we shouldn't have to go through you. You have had it at no time.
I've had it at no time other than the time I saw it in the box and saw it before the grand jury.
Now, I don't know as it's important, but I will ask you, have you had anything to do with these axes or hatchets, the custody of them?
Yes, sir.
Which?
All of them.
Did you take them from the house, or were they given to you by someone else?
No, sir.
By whom were they given to you?
Directly, they were not in my custody, but I have seen them since.
At any time on Thursday, the day of the homicide, did you have occasion to go into the barn?
I did.
At what time of the day?
Soon after 12.
After 12.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell how much after 12?
A very few moments. I couldn't say just how much after, but a few moments after 12.
Did you go upstairs in the loft at that time?
I did.
Did anyone go with you?
At that time, there was others, but I can't recall them at this time.
How long did you stay up in the loft at that time?
Perhaps 2 minutes?
What was the temperature in that loft?
Are you going to give it exactly?
No, but whether hot or cold.
Very hot and close to...
Did you go into the barn again in the day?
I did.
What time the second time of the day?
Might be 1:30 or 2.
Did others go with you at that time?
Yes, sir.
What did you find the condition of things there then? Describe everything that you saw.
Well, we saw downstairs.
I don't care about downstairs, but up, Mr. Fleet.
Upstairs, we found a lot of old boards and rubbish and considerable hay. The hay covered nearly the north part of the barn, the north side of the barn.
How was the temperature in the barn in the afternoon? How was it up there in the afternoon?
Very hot.
What sort of a day was it generally in Fall River on that day with respect to heat?
It was very hot, one of the hottest days I think we had had.
How long did you stay up in the barn in the afternoon?
Long enough to feel under the hay for any person or instrument, that was all. We didn't overhaul the hay.
Did you notice anything with reference to the hay on the first time that you went up? Take any particular notice of it?
Nothing more than the hay was piled up as hay should be in a barn, piled up the north side of the barn.
Did you happen to know or see the quantity of hay that was there the other day, the day the jury took a view?
I did, yes.
How did the quantity of hay that was in the barn the other day, the day of the view, compare with the quantity on August 4th?
Well, there might be half of the hay there.
Did you see anything of a basket or a box of lead anywhere? And if so, where?
I saw a basket upstairs.
Did you take them away, either of them?
I did not, no, sir.
Well, then I won't ask you about that. I will ask someone else about that. When did you see the basket, and where did you see it?
On a bench, that is, on a kind of a bench upstairs.
That is the bench which runs by the side of the barn.
Yes, sir.
On the south side.
On the south side.
Did you notice what was there in the basket?
Well, pieces of iron. I have a very faint recollection of what was in there.
You took no particular notice of it.
Iron and lead, something of that kind.
Did you notice anything with reference to a box of lead downstairs? If you did not, I will ask someone else.
I did not. I saw a box, but I didn't examine it closely.
Mr. Fleet, did you receive any clothing from any other person? A dress, stockings, shoes, anything of that sort? Did you yourself receive it?
I believe not.
Mr. Moody completes the direct examination of the witness. The Lizzie Borden trial, Day 4, featured Christine Daniels as George Robinson, Kevin Morrison as Chief Justice Mason, Mark Penny as Hosea Knowlton, Keith Morrison as William H. Moody, Matt Campbell as John Fleet. This production was produced by Lion's Den Theater. Feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm your Day 4 announcer, Denisha Farrell. Stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe.